Hi, it's Tash at Foxes and Brown Bears Tarot, and today I thought I'd do a little video where of my recommendations for the best decks to start with if you're a beginner to tarot. Now, these are my opinions, and I am a big Rider-Waite Smith person, and therefore my general recommendation is to start with Rider-Waite Smith type decks. Now, of course, there are people who start with completely different decks and become amazing readers. And so this is just my subjective view, possibly because this is how I learned. So I'm going to go through 9 decks. And so I'm going to do the traditional, then the slightly off traditional, and then just give you a few different alternatives as well. So the first one I'm going to show you is just your standard Rider-Waite Smith. Now these can come in a variety of versions, and basically just picking whichever colors and color palette that appeals to you ultimately. Now I don't use this deck a lot, but I have used this to study and I pretty much learned on this deck. And in fact, when I use new decks now, I immediately actually picture the Rider-Waite Smith card when I see a card. And so I use this as a real point of reference in my mind. So it's really easy because it's very symbolic. And once you start associating the symbols in the images, it really helps to not have to memorize meanings. And that's what's great about this, is you start recognizing what the different symbols mean, and you start reading things into it. You can associate keywords with this deck really easily, and it's classic, and the reality is everyone's going to benefit from having an understanding of how this deck works. So that's the real standard. If you're not sure which deck to get a variety of the Rider-Waite Smith one. I'll just show you some of the minors as well. So these are the wands, and you can see they have very clear images where things are happening, where you can kind of picture a story. And ultimately, if you are starting off, being able to picture a story in a deck, in a card, is really helpful, because you can start creating meaning for each card in your mind. And so this is a great deck. It's just a classic. It'll always be a classic. And that's the reality. So yeah, so that's your standard Rider-Waite Smith. Now, if you wanted something a little bit similar to that, but you didn't quite want to go super traditional, there's a couple options you could go with. So one I'd recommend is the Golden Universal Tarot. So this is if you want something a little bit shinier. And this is a low Scarabeo deck. And gorgeous backs. It's quite a matte cardstock with a little bit of a sheen. Now I have edged mine in black Sharpie, and so they tend to just come with the white borders. But this is a beautiful deck, and it's very similar to, it is very much a Rider-Waite Smith deck. The only thing is they've changed just a little bit of the images a little bit, and they've created this gold foiling on the cards that you can probably see as they catch the light. And so it makes them really beautiful, I have to say. Like every card has gold foiling through it. This is a little more subtle in terms of the artwork. And so if you want something a little bit finer, a little bit different, this is a really good alternative as well. And what's great about this is that it still gives you those key images. The only thing about this deck is that the minors are really easy, because you see the coins and then you kind of see 5, so you know it's 5 of Pentacles. But say, for example, with the Major Arcana, it won't actually give you the title. And so you need to know that number 1 is the Magician. But once again, you quickly get to learn what the images actually are. So that's the only thing. If you prefer the name of the card on it, then maybe this isn't the deck for you. Another similar deck which I find quite useful for beginners is the Golden Art Nouveau Tarot. So this is also a low Scarabeo, and kind of similar, nice backs. I haven't edged this one, so this is generally what they look like. And you can see it's also got that gold foiling. Once again, it also doesn't have the names of the cards on it, unlike, as you can see, these ones, where you can see a very clear naming system. And so, but I do find that these are quite interesting as well. And once again, it's a slightly different art style. And if you like this sort of art style a little bit more, then that could appeal to you. Like, that's a beautiful Queen of Wands. And so, lovely, lovely deck. If you want something very Waite Smith, but a little bit different. Because the thing with these two decks that I've shown you is you could use any Waite Smith book, and the imagery is pretty much consistent. You're still going to see the same key elements in the pictures, and so it will still be very, very easy for you to learn from. All right, so now say if you don't want anything quite that Waite Smith, there are some alternatives as well. If you're into angels, there are two decks that I would recommend. The first one is the Angel Tarot Cards by Radley Valentine, and this is a cute little Hay House deck. And what I like about this is it does come with a cute little book that does give you some very basic meanings. And so that's quite good for a beginner. It also gives you a lot of information in terms of how to shuffle, and it gives you some background on how the deck's divided up, and gives you some easy spreads as well to start with. Now this deck has really nice backs. I really like it. It is more glossy than the others that I've shown you. And I have edged it with a little bit of silver. So they normally come in whites. And the reason why I think this is a great deck for beginners is because it gives you all the information on the card. So you've got the book, and the book gives you a lot more. But you've got the number of the card, you've got the moon, and generally with the major arcana, he links it to a particular angel. But what's good about this one is it actually gives you keywords. And so if you are learning, this is a really good way of starting to read without having to constantly go back to the book, where you've got those reminders of what that card might actually mean. And so this is a really good deck for that. The only thing is to notice is that he changes the names of the suits. And so, for example, instead of pentacles, you have earth. And also you'll notice that the images are not Waite Smith, really. So if you are wanting to study from a Waite Smith book, it's a little bit more of a stretch in terms of, you won't be able to look for the same symbols, but all the meanings are the same in terms of what he's linked each card to. And so they are beautiful, beautiful cards. Love that strength of card. So yes, so you can see that that's quite a good little deck. If you want something a little bit different, you want something a little bit softer as well, because he does rename the cards, like the Death and Devil cards and that, to slightly more, I guess, loving words. And so if you're a little bit more sensitive and you like angels, that's a really good one to learn on. Another one that's actually more recent is the Angel Wisdom Tarot, also by Radley Valentine. This is also a Hay House publication. And this one comes with quite a chunk of a guidebook. and he gives quite a lot of information on each of the cards, so just about 1.5 pages, up to 2 pages for some of them. And so this is great in my opinion because heaps of information in here, and you can definitely read from that book. What's good about this particular deck is, I mean, the backs are lovely. This is also matte, and so if you don't like the glossy, this is a good one to go with, particularly because the cards slide really easily. So they're a little bit easier to shuffle than the glossy one. And what's great about this is that it's a little bit more contemporary and it's a little bit more everyday. So you can actually see everyday things in it, even though it does still have some angels. But once again, it has some great keywords in this. And the keywords are brilliant. I really like these keywords. And they're just absolutely great. Like, you could read this without the book. Absolutely. Now, what he does as well is he tells you what element it is. He gives you the number. And so once again, you got to see it's swords, and it's number 2, 2 of swords. So you got to be able to recognize that. He also links it to particular angels as well. But if you don't want to use it that way, you don't have to. You can see some of the cards do have angels on them. But really great little keywords. So magic is alive in your life. What you need to be a success will manifest. If you believe it, you can do it. So that's kind of cool. And beautiful artwork. This is by Dan Craig. Really lovely. Nice contemporary deck that has a little bit of angelic presence in it. And excellent keywords if you want to learn. So yes, so that's the Angel Wisdom Tarot by Radley Valentine. All right, so if you don't want angels, but you still want that contemporary feel of cards, there are 2 decks I'd highly recommend. The first one is the Lightseers Tarot. Once again, another Hay House production. And this is a gorgeous deck. It's one of my favorites. It's got a great book with great meaning, so you can really read from this. She also has a website that gives you more information on each card. Lovely backs. Once again, nice matte that slide nicely. And what's great about this deck is it has beautiful images in it. They're contemporary, they're vibrant, but you can read stories in them. It's a great storytelling deck. And this one does actually give you the names of the cards. But as you can see, you can kind of see stories in it. So the tower there, you can see that there's some sort of catastrophe happening. There you can see her vibrancy. There you can see the scales of justice. And so you can see the pictures in this one a lot. And what I love about this deck are the court cards, because court cards are notoriously difficult to read as a beginner. And what's great about this is you really get a sense of the personality of these people. And so you can easily link adjectives to them, you know, like self-assured and, you know, cerebral, and you kind of get those ideas of how to read it. So very clear storytelling here. So once again, very easy to link to particular meanings. And it's a very Rider-Waite Smith, so you can definitely use any Rider-Waite Smith book for this. It's not going to have exactly the same symbols, but it's got so much storytelling in it that you should easily be able to create links in your mind. Love this card. So that's the Lightseers Tarot by Chris Ann. And great deck. Next is my all-time favorite deck, It's the one I use the most, and it's the Everyday Enchantment Tarot by Poppy Palin, and this is a Schiffer deck. So it comes in this little flip book, like box, and the reason why, there's actually a few reasons why I would recommend this deck enormously. I wouldn't recommend it for the way they divide the cards up in the box, because they're a bit of a pain to get out, as you just saw. But I keep them separately anyway, generally. And the best, oh look, there's so many great things about this deck, but the first one's the book. The book is amazing. If you are just learning, she gives you a whole, like 2-page spread on each card. She gives you little stories. So she'll explain the image, all the symbols in the image. She'll give you the meaning of the cards. But more than that, she'll give you a little story so that you can actually start picturing what's happening for the people in the card. And so that really helps embed that card in your memory. So this book is gold if you are learning. And beautiful, beautiful backs. Now, I have edged this. I have trimmed this deck. So normally what happens is you'd have the same color that's on the bottom would be around the sides and the top, but I've trimmed the top and sides off, and I've just kept the title at the bottom, just because I think it helps make the artwork pop. It also makes it a more reasonable size deck, because this is quite a large deck. But what is amazing about this deck is that, once again, it's a storytelling deck. You can see what's happening in it. I mean, you can see there. You can try and picture what all these people are thinking, feeling, what's actually happening, what's the backstory. You can really get story out of this one, and that makes it incredibly easy to read. And once again, the court cards, so expressive. Like, you can see that this person is a curious person who's out there learning, passionate about the world around them. You know, just an amazing deck. And it depicts every facet of life, the different people in the world, different scenarios, different types of relationships, abilities, ages, body types, ethnicities. It's just such an incredibly done deck, and it is my all-time favorite for that reason as well. So there's just so much going for this one. Like, you can totally see the personality, the feeling in each image, and you just remember them. So yes, so I could keep going on about this deck forever because it is my favorite, but definitely the Everyday Enchantment by Poppy Palin. Fabulous, fabulous deck to learn on. All right, so if you want something a little bit quirkier, that's not just depicting everyday life, you can go to some more kind of witchy decks. And probably the best witch deck to learn on is the Everyday Witch by Deborah Blake, artwork by Elizabeth Alba. And this is a great deck to learn on because, first of all, the book is incredible. It's a full colored book, and it's got great meanings for each card, but really simple, really easy to grasp, very simply written, and great little just phrases to link to the cards as well. So, you know, there's wisdom in listening to the silence. Alone is not the same thing as lonely. And so even those start giving you the sense of what the hermit's all about. And so the book is amazing. And the deck is fabulous as well. Ooh, my fox just fell off. Oh well. So what's great about this deck, I mean, the backs are beautiful. It is kind of glossy. It's a Llewellyn deck. And the Llewellyn decks tend to be this kind of quite slippy glossy. But at least it's slippy glossy, and it's not the glossy that sticks. So it's actually quite easy to shuffle. It's a nice size deck as well. But what's great again is the storytelling. It's very, very Rider-Waite Smith. And so you can still use your basic learning from that. But it's kind of quirky. And you can still see a very strong story in each of the cards. So here you can see she's definitely making a choice. You know, and you can kind of see the courts once again, very, very expressive, give you a lot of information about the type of person that's being depicted in that card. So highly creative person who's just learning, you know, their creativity, that sort of thing. So incredible. I really like it. It's a great little deck for learning. So highly recommend it. All right, if you want something a little more kind of edgy but similar, the Wizard's Tarot is actually really good to learn on as well. It's also a Llewellyn deck, and once again it has a great book with some really good meanings in it, and so that makes it very useful anyway. Great little meanings. And this one is quite similar in a lot of ways. It's got the same cardstock, it's the same nice slippy glossy. The backs are kind of cool. And what's great about this is as well is it really does tell quite a strong story, but it's a little bit more, I guess, more graphical in terms of its art style. It's a little edgier in terms of the witchiness of it. So if you don't like the cutesy of the everyday witch, this could be one that you could really like. And it's still very Rider-Waite Smith, and it's got some of the same symbols that you'll recognize in the traditional deck, just depicted in a very, very clever way as well. So just beautifully clever. It's got some really good ways of depicting the cards that really help you remember. This example 8 of Swords here, where she's feeling trapped, but the reality is she's trapping herself, because if she lets go of that rope, she's free. And so that's just a very typical meaning for these cards. So, and the court cards are quite well done as well. And a great little deck, and beautiful artwork, a bit Harry Potterish, but it does actually draw on a lot of pop culture, sort of things like the Dresden Files and things like that as well. So you can actually recognize a few of the symbols in some key TV shows as well. All right, and finally, if you don't want everyday, you don't want witchy, in fact, you don't want people in your deck at all, and you want a beginner's animal deck, one of my favorite beginner animal decks is actually the Magical Dogs Tarot. This is created by Mickey and Daniel Muller, and once again, a Llewellyn deck. And I recommend this because once again, the book is fabulous. Really, really good little book to learn from. And the cards, once again, are very similar to the Everyday Witch and the Wizard's Tarot. Backs are adorable. I love them. And the reason I've chosen this, because I have heaps of animal decks and I love my animal decks. But a lot of animal decks will just have the animal within it, and it doesn't link quite as straight in such a straightforward way to the Rider-Waite Smith. It requires a bit more knowledge of the animal, the energy of that animal, and requires a little bit more experience with tarot reading. Whereas this one is very much depicting the key idea of the Rider-Waite Smith meanings. So here, like Two of Earth, you're balancing things, right? Here you're trying to escape, you feel trapped, but there actually is a gap in the fence. So it's like that Eight of Swords that we saw in the Wizard's Tarot. Now they do rename the suits, but that's not very difficult to sort out, really. And it still gives you all the same images, really. A lot of the same key symbols. So here you've got the High Priestess normally has two pillars. Here you've got two trees. So if you were using a Rider-Waite Smith book, you could still find some of the key symbols in this. You've got the moon, and the Empress, all about fertility, motherhood, that kind of thing. And so it's a animal deck that is still very, very easy to read. And it's great. So I highly recommend this one as well. So yes, great deck card. And yes, so super, super beautiful. And yep, that is, I'll show you some of the minors as well. I had put this in order, I think, because I was looking at it. And yeah, so you can see the stories, you can see the feeling, like you can see the fear in this dog, the anxiety. Yeah, so you can definitely get a sense of what is going on in the cards. And they're super beautiful. And the court cards are done quite well as well. So you can see, for example, this is the King of Wands, and you can see like he's the fire element, and you got the Dalmatian. So very, very well done. So they are my 9 recommendations for any beginners. Once again, they're my recommendations. You may find something else that's awesome. And of course, there are different systems. You're not restricted to learning the Rider-Waite Smith system. You can choose one of the others, and you can in fact just choose something that doesn't even fit a system at all. So thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful. Catch you soon. Bye.